Дякуємо за те, що знайшли час.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending the press conference. Our speakers, why we gathered here. Sad news appeared. A girl was admitted to the emergency room in Dnipropetrovsk because of tetanus. And of course, we try to make positive look at vaccination, and this advance gather us together, and we will be able to unite three main areas in order to bring proper information to parents. So we should unite our efforts, parents, power, and the media in order to overcome these problems. So first I would like to ask Uliana what is going on as to procurement. Good afternoon. Second day at work, a lot of work to do. We greet you with the appointment yesterday in the evening and today. Our team, volunteers, in the majority, those who work with me, we are trying to get information what is going on in the sphere of state procurement. For you to understand, there is a department that deals with the public procurement. There are 5 people, head and 4 workers. There is no head of this department. The place is vacant, and others are on holidays or on sick leave. And the ministry, no one is dealing with the state procurement, for you to know. Today and yesterday, we tried to get information what is going on. Today, they brought to me 20 documents to sign for those medicines that are now at the customs. Additionally, there are a lot of orders for other medicines. I don't know from whom they are sent, who brought them, whether this is Crown Agency or other organizations. And now, in the Ministry of Health, our lawyers and people who understand those matters, now they try to understand what are these documents in order that I can sign them when I return to the ministry. Now the activity is the low level because no one deals with it. What steps should be taken first by you, by your team, taking into account your volunteer experience in order to prevent such situations? Firstly, this department should be staffed with people who are able to work. First, these will be people from the ministry or those who will work as volunteers. As you know, there are 4 people who are now out of work. They are on holiday or on a sick leave, and we cannot get them involved. And also, we should have contact for the head of this department, and we will appoint the acting head of this department. There is a person in the ministry who understands the situation. He worked with the previous deputy minister, Mr. Dragunets, and we hope that we will have the person who will be able to work with us. And also, I will deal with those issues with my lawyers and with people who got involved, who know about the situation. These are from NGOs and volunteers who want to help. This is first. And the second, now we are dealing with the vaccines because there are many medicines. There are some medicines for oncology and other things, but now we are speaking about vaccines. Till Thursday, we will put information on our site, what organizations and how many doses we ordered, what doses were brought, and whether they are in the regions. And there is no control over whether they are in the regions. So there is an order, but we wait that this invoice was brought back and there should be a signature. And this is paperwork we should deal with. All these invoices should be found, and we should see whether these medicines were distributed, or it is in the storage facility, or it is in the region. So we will deal with those issues, and there are many problems in the Ministry of Health, but we will deal with this problem. And as we all know, vaccination and immunization, this is the matter of national security. This is a very important thing for you to know, that there was a meeting of the ministry, and statistics was provided, how many children were vaccinated this year. And this is starting from 1st July 2016, children of first year who were vaccinated, TB 11.5%, 39% polio, diphtheria, pertussis, and hemophilia 4%, for example. So the problem is not only in the bringing these vaccines, but also in the fact that children are not vaccinated. And other speakers maybe are going to tell you about the problems that are now. And we are in the ministry, we took decisions, and there are already made the letters to the President of Ukraine and to the Secretary of the Security and Defense Council, where we demand, in order to provide vaccines to children, there should be 95% children vaccinated according to the World Health Organization requirements. So there should be a meeting of the Security Council with the participation of all the stakeholders, and it should be identified that the vaccination is the priority for safety and security of Ukraine. And also maybe this is a very important thing for me, that vaccination, this issue should be brought at the state level, at the level of the President, Prime Minister, Security Council, in order that parents and children and doctors, we should all understand the importance of vaccination. I hope that there will be a quick response. But we insist, and we hope that society should support our requirements, and the NGOs should support this in order to place this question on the agenda at the highest state level. Going back to the topic of that case, this incident with the girl, I asked Fyodor Ivanovich to comment the situation. What is tetanus? Maybe you have some statistical data about situation in Ukraine, whether vaccination is on the way. So thank you for this invitation. I should say that this is life-threatening disease. So people are left disabled, and there is time for rehabilitation. If a child has a generalized tetanus, most cases are lethal, and the only way how to prevent is to vaccinate. This is the only way. When we are speaking about Syria and if we are speaking about serum, this is an emergency way how to make things better if there is no vaccination or absence of booster vaccination. And so tetanus can be found anywhere. All animals can have this and the spores of tetanus, they are very resistant, and they can live for many years in soils. And for example, children can get some injuries, burns, and spores of tetanus, they can get into the wound, and they produce toxins that cause spasms, and they are so powerful they can even break bones, and the child cannot breathe. That's why when we are speaking about a child that is in the Dnipropetrovsk, I asked my colleagues about this girl. She is now on the special apparatus that helps her to breathe, and they say that they started to provide some food through special devices to this child. But this disease is absolutely preventable, but there is no other way how to overcome this disease. And now I would like to say about sector of responsibility. Who is responsible for what? Parents are responsible for kids. They give permission for vaccination till 18 years old. This is their right to decide for a child. And in our state, I would like to say that, unfortunately, if child is not protected, it is under the threat of this life-threatening disease, and this should be a cause for juvenile justice, because such incidents, for example, if parents refuse vaccination in Belgium, they can be brought to court. Of course, you can cite that you have some religious beliefs that are against vaccination, but society establishes rules how to prevent, how to treat, and how to be among the people, because there are diseases that are spread. If there are, for example, some traffic rules, they are both for the pedestrians and for the drivers. And if we want to have less problems and if we want to survive, so we should adhere to the rules, and the same applies to vaccination. But this is the responsibility of the parents. Of course, when parents refuse vaccinations, we have no such incidences that parents are brought to responsibility for their irresponsibility. And for example, if a child fell out the window, for example, cows got burnt, or a child was not vaccinated because people didn't want to vaccinate because of some myths. And there is also an area of responsibility of the doctors. The doctor should identify what can prevent, what can counterindications for vaccination. Sometimes they are provided for money. And when we are speaking about this incident, my colleague said that mother went to Donetsk. She had consultations whether these vaccines are needed. And the doctor from Donetsk, I provide information that I was provided from my colleagues. They said that your child should not be vaccinated. And I asked, in 5 years, did you have some counterindications? And the doctor said no, there were no. So this was the opinion of the doctor, who has the diploma, he has the license, and here is the question of the responsibility of the doctors, the medical staff who work in state institutions. And here is the problem, because I'm sorry, I'm emotional, but today there was an appointment to the child and I was impressed, and and in Ahmadiet hospital, we should be grateful to doctors, but the child was refused an operative treatment because on the 27th of July got vaccination from hepatitis. The child is 2.7 years, and there should have been operation, but there were no operation because it is too hard, such a big load for immune system. And doctors and also other child, they said that they shouldn't be vaccinated before the surgical operation of, and this child should be vaccinated after the operation. Also, there are clear indicators in what cases children should be vaccinated. If person should be operated on, so if child is vaccinated in 2 or 5 days before operation, so I can tell you a lot of such incidences. Sorry for speaking about it now, but this is not the first incident. And this is like in medieval ages. And going back to the child was born in 2011, and there was access to vaccination against pertussis. And this child could be fully vaccinated. And this sector of the responsibility of the doctors, they should consult properly people. Also the state, and not only the Ministry of Health. I understand that the president is the main here, and I am grateful to Uliana that there is a letter to the president and to the National Security and Defense Council, because this is the issue of defense of Ukraine and security of Ukraine, and the issues of registration, certification, especially under war conditions. So we are speaking about the Supreme Council, about legislation, about sabotage, and other problems that are connected with the issues of immunization in Ukraine. That's what I wanted to say, and it is important to thank the deputies, because they brought this issue to the Mr. Verza, the deputy, his daughter was born this month, and there was some sort of PR, but it helped to save the child. So the topic of vaccination is on the agenda, and it should be used not only for PR, but in order that there should be people who would deal with these issues at the Supreme Council, and we should go to the better level of vaccination of our children. Also, we have a big problem. If a doctor would deal with these issues in Europe or in the United States in this way, whether this is the Academy of Pediatricians in the United States or organizations in the Great Britain, these issues would be brought on the ethical aspects of work of those doctors would be reviewed. And our associations, they are not working properly, but there are some new trends, and the new associations should rise that would defend these rights. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Fyodor. One more question. What initiatives can help to increase the quality, the level of this knowledge about vaccination? So this is a complex issue, and if we take simple things that should be in our country, my subordinate goes to Poland, and he will have some training there, and I said that now you have the opportunity to go there, to have some training, to learn language, whether it is English or French or Polish. You can get experience, you can share the experience about vaccination, about progressive procedures of therapy, and in this way you can change the country, because this is not the issue one day, this is the issue for 10 or 15 years. If we don't change the system of licensing, so we should form doctors' association that should deal with these issues. If we don't do it, there won't be any changes. So this is a global issue. Thank you. Natalia, going back to tetanus, how can we prevent tetanus? The information interesting for media and for the parents.
Good afternoon. I'm glad to see you. This sad event gathered us. In general, as concerned tetanus, there are two aspects. The first is planning active immunization according to the schedule. And what is surprising, why children should suffer this disease, I don't understand. I have more than 20 years of professional experience, and I have not faced this disease. Yes, there were no cases previously, and I think we should put efforts to prevent any cases. Now we should not seek for guilty persons who is responsible for that goal not to have been immunized. This is as concerns scheduled immunization and also the extraordinary prevention. There are two aspects. I would like to accent more, to focus more scheduled immunization according to the calendar timing, so that we can sleep well and not to worry for our children, because it is impossible for children not to get some scratches or some traumas. My daughter, when she was 6 in April, and in September she was to go to school, and first I thought to postpone vaccination, but my mother, she insisted, and we vaccinated her. And in August we went to some religious holiday, and the daughter fell. She had a wound about 1.5 centimeters. We went to the trauma center. The wound was processed there, cured, but the surgeon asked whether the child has been vaccinated, and I was so glad to reply that yes, my child had been vaccinated already. So you should keep it in mind that you keep with the schedule of vaccination with your children. My colleagues has already accented on the message about the distribution of responsibility. We are responsible for our health, and in the context of immunization, this is the responsibility both of parents and doctors. The state should provide enough doses of vaccines. This is the first side, the first point. And children also should follow the schedule. There are very many problems for our children should do what is in our efforts. If I ask everyone in the audience who has vaccination against tetanus and diphtheria, and I would be glad if they would be 5 persons. I would like to remind you that according to the order of the ministry, every 10 years adults should go for booster shots. Thank you. I know you also have information. You have statistical data that many parents decide about the vaccination based on information from mass media. Thank you. I would pose this question in the other way. I would articulate it in the other way. To comment mass media articles after the articles in mass media and TV channel programs. When there is a program with a title that the child died after the vaccination, there is the event death. And during the period from 2008 and 2016, there were 3 cases. The first was related to measles, then pentaxoid vaccine. The last event was the communication, the message that substandard and unsafe vaccines are used in Ukraine to children, and these vaccines cause deaths. The process of vaccination, planned vaccination, we can say that some elements of it are important and some of them are less important. We made presentation at our roundtable discussion. Here you can see the approach. There are many different ministries involved and they should contribute into implementation of the state policy of immunization. Besides that, it is important for vaccines to be available in the country because they can't be replaced. They are not pills against the headache, and at least 18 months to 2 years are required for production of such medical drugs. The question is that also our public, our civil society should support vaccination campaign, and we also should have competent doctors to conduct these vaccination campaigns. Our acting minister, Uliana Suprun, has told today already that not talking about the welfare, we should talk about the national security. We should talk about protection of every individual. Indeed, I would like to add one remark. Distribution of responsibility. The program, our program, of 2015 ended in 2015, and now we do not have either plan or program. We are a country of the European region. There is a European plan on immunization, and there are goals in this plan of immunization, and we should take commitments to meet these goals and how to do them, to implement this, to achieve these goals. We should be the country which care about children's health and our own health. I would like to add to Ms. Natalia Vinnik, in our country there is impunity, and it is better in our country not to do something than to do something and then to held liable for that. If you remember, there were several years ago we were to conduct the campaign against measles and mumps because waves of mumps come to Ukraine every several years, and additional immunization campaign should have been conducted in 2008. The criminal case was initiated and it has not been closed. Yes, this is the case against Mr. Pradanchuk. The person took responsibility to conduct additional immunization campaign, and he has been sued by the state. And now there are 2 criminal cases also for another person who took responsibility. So where is the responsibility? Why persons remain not punished for spreading the rumors about substandard vaccines? In our country, it is much easier to sue a person who took responsibility. There is only one serum against tetanus produced by Donetsk blood center. There are no other products against tetanus registered and licensed in Ukraine. If some humanitarian aid will be allowed to come to Ukraine from international organizations, then I even now can just imagine those titles or potential articles in mass media that some vaccines are brought to Ukraine from other countries in order to be tested on Ukrainian children. But you should feel your responsibility for distributing such rumors. And there is an NGO, Parents for Vaccination, and its representative Timothy is now here. I would like to ask you, Timothy, you have vast experience of working with parents. What are your thoughts? I have vision, and I have hope that there is good indicator when the minister to our order he today come to this meeting, to this briefing. In 2015 we made many attempts addressing the ministry, but nobody responded to us. No letters from the ministry in reply to our and other NGOs' letters were previously provided. I hope that we will overcome tetanus in Ukraine together. We can say that somebody should be responsible, but in fact all of us are responsible. I would like to say to the minister, please don't start with developing strategy and vision. You should make the first step. We should supply doses of vaccines, make them available, and you should also staff the ministry with a good team. And the parent wrote to us that when he provides to the he comes to the registration room, and just one letter, you should send one letter to all medical institutions so that they open information about the availability of vaccine in their institutions. The other thing, if parents they don't understand well the need of vaccination, Even if they don't want to make vaccination, try to persuade them, because a child has the right to be protected. So the doctor should persuade parents. There are hundreds of parents with whom we held meetings. They just need knowledge. Where can we raise funds for such communication campaigns? They can be raised at Spilna Kosht website or iGov. This service is already in operation. We just need support from civil society, from the ministry, and then very many useful features which are free of charge. They will be launched at this iGov service. The same concerns ProZorro public procurement system. It should become even more transparent. Even procurement for under 50,000 hryvnias should be monitored. Now we issuing a brochure answers to parents' questions about vaccination. If a parent knows all information what can happen with his or her child in the case of such disease as tetanus, then the parent would think twice. If a surgeon said that a child should not be vaccinated, you should ask some other doctor. My child has a sick heart, and I was told in my outpatient clinic that my child should be vaccinated in the first turn because her heart is weak, and her heart will prevent her survival in case of tetanus. So the strategy means vaccination campaign. Thank you.
I would like to add this manual will be distributed free of charge in delivery rooms and kindergartens. Thank you. Olga, I would like to ask you what should be done in order to improve the level of vaccination, how to make it rise. Olga Stefanishina, I represent the Patient of Ukraine organization. I would like to state some figures. There is a term, collective vaccination, when the nation has the threshold of vaccination that prevents such cases as in Dnipropetrovsk with that girl. So the level should be more than 95%. In 2007, the level was 96%. Now Lana told us about the terrible figures, and to 20% vaccination in all the programs. This is terrible. What we have in Ukraine is terrible. After 2007, those cases, anti-vaccination campaign of 2008, they caused such a terrible situation, and all this has causes. Firstly, this is corruption. Tender of the Ministry of Health, they were with the corruptive component, and all we saw through the media, these were the manipulations and the sharing of the markets of the in our state lasted for many years. And now we have a unique situation when the state has the opportunity to solve this problem. Last year, the Ministry of Health of Ukraine, hopefully, due to Mr. Perginets, made an agreement with UNICEF that started to deliver vaccines of high quality to Ukraine. But there is one problem. Ukraine orders vaccines from the day when these vaccines cannot be delivered. These ordering the vaccines of 2015 for 2015, this is a nonsense. The cycle is about 2 years. So ordering vaccines for 2016, we will get them next year or even in 1.5 or 2 years. What can be done? The positive trend is that the Ministry of Health addressed the National Defense and Security Council in order to hold the meeting, and we asked for this meeting a year ago when we had the case of polio. And what should be done? We should have vaccines in Ukraine. In order that we have them here, there should be an uninterrupted supply of vaccines. And 10 years ago, Georgia concluded long-term contracts with UNICEF, and our neighboring countries, they didn't have such problems like we have now. Ukraine should go along this way now. UNICEF supply quality vaccines to Ukraine that are qualified by the WHO. They have good prices, best in the world, because they made batch purchases and they have discounts for their procurements. And this year, UNICEF saved 25 million hryvnias on procurement of vaccines for Ukraine. So we believe that all these obstacles in legislation that exists to conclude such contracts, they should be overcome by the government of Ukraine, and we hope that Vladimir Groisman and the new heads of the Ministry of Health will be able to overcome these obstacles, and we are ready as a civil society to help it in the technical and legal aspects. In order to solve the situation that we face, we have what we have. It is important to understand that majority of these serums, they are not registered in Ukraine, and law that was adopted recently at the initiatives of the government of the Ukraine allows the simplified procedure to register such serum, and we will address UNICEF with the request to provide the nation to Ukraine in order to save such children as this girl from the Dnipropetrovsk. And I would like to say, not as a head of the fund, I am a mother myself. I have 2 children, 2 daughters, 7 and 4 years, and they are fully vaccinated. And I'm very grateful to pediatrician who personally, 7 years ago, he told me technically how to protect my children. And I'm not afraid that they are in the village with their grandmother. They can walk, they can fall as normal children do. Thank you. Thank you, Olga. And the last question to Uliana. Now we have representatives of NGOs and patients of Ukraine, parents for vaccination, and what help from NGOs is needed for you as the ministry? What do you expect? The help that we have today. We should have dialogue, we should have communication, we should have public forums to speak about such important issues in order to motivate parents to vaccinate kids, in order to help in professional associations among doctors, to share, to spread true information about vaccination. And partly it can be done by the Ministry of Health, and partly it can be done through professional organizations. And also doctors themselves will be able to better be aware about these matters, and parents, they should read those books, but it is very difficult for them because if they request for information and doctors reject what was stated in the book, that would be difficult. And the last one, the public and civil society, they should start the dialogue about these matters. So there shouldn't be such cases. And there was a meeting in the ministry 2 weeks ago, and these issues were discussed and resolutions were adopted. And it didn't go to the media. And the deputy minister, Roman Ilik, who is working in the ministry and he cooperates with me, he understood the needs, and he provided the figures in order that I showed them to you about the state of vaccination here in Ukraine, and we should speak more about the specific cases, and we should highlight them both in the media and through NGOs, parents, the ministry, the public, the media. Everyone will listen, we hope, and we will have more influence on other bodies of executive power and on politicians and the Supreme Council. Thank you for inviting me. This is a very important matter, and I agree that we should firstly to decide such important issues. And also parallel, there is a strategy. We shouldn't just sit and wait and speak, because this should be done, because the system should be established. But believe me, for the last 48 hours were really tense, because we were trying to get information, what vaccines are here in Ukraine, what were brought, and the documents signed. If no one is in, how to sign the documents if there are no one in the department. So I promise that on Thursday we will bring this information to the site and to see, for you to see the final figures, and we are ready for cooperation. We already cooperate, and we get information and advice both from UNICEF and the UNDP and from patients of Ukraine and other organizations that deal with these matters. And I thank you for inviting me. I thank for the information, for cooperation, and I hope that we will further cooperate and we do everything in order to improve the situation, and in a year we'll be able to speak about 95% of children who are vaccinated, and there won't be these outbreaks or such disease in Ukraine. Thank you. Thank you very much. So summing up and going back to the topic of the press conference, we should state that mortality from tetanus is about 80 or 90%. The only way how to prevent it is to vaccinate. There are vaccines, and parents should vaccinate their kids. And our work, both media and the ministry and doctors and NGOs, should motivate the positive image of vaccination. And if you have questions, please ask.
Unfortunately, Uliana Supron should go, and now you can ask questions to other speakers, up to 3 questions. To Miss Uliana, I have question. TSN and 1+1 TV channels. The head of the department, how long has he been unavailable? He has been fired. He was fired 1 month ago. And what about this serum? When it was bought last time, who should buy it? From what budget? National or local budget? Local budget. Why such difficulties appeared in the local departments of health? What were the barriers? When those local departments bought vaccines for the last time, I don't know. I'm not responsible for local departments of health. I don't have information about their supplies. I can give you the answer. The legislation of Ukraine, the law of Ukraine on protection of population against infectious diseases, it has such provisions that the state is responsible for vaccines supply and vaccination of population, but there is fear of responsibility for action. Civil servants are afraid to act. They are more afraid to act than to enact. The process of registration vaccination and the registration of Ukraine failed. The only serum registered in Ukraine is the serum produced by Donetsk Blood Center. It is registered vaccine, but no chief of department of health at local level can't buy it, and he also can't buy the serums which are not registered. Previously, there is another problem, like we talk about procurement of vaccines. I would like to say that in the recent years, when the rules of the game changed several times and the ministers also changed, we have been experiencing deficit of budget for 25 to 35%. In 2014 it was 50% deficit of financing simply, and several times TB vaccine tender was announced, but there were no registered vaccines in 2014. Returning back to your question, Oksana, chief doctors of institutions, when local authorities, local deputies did not fund local vaccination campaigns, then the chief doctors from their own funds bought vaccines. They raised those funds from the doctors, but the system did nothing. The answer to the question, when the last procurement took place, it was order number 409 from 2015, about the possibility to use unregistered vaccines, and it includes serums. There was order on one-time supply of non-registered serums, for example, from Poland, but this does not mean that this was free of charge, and this does not mean that the ministry bought those drugs. This is a separate, discrete fact. There were thousands of doses. You can find more precise information. Friends, the last question. Bogdan Kagadi, Inter-TV channel, as concerned planned vaccination, whether Ukraine and local levels, district clinics, are they ready for vaccination campaign? Yes, they are ready for vaccination campaign. They have refrigerators and all other equipment. Many regions receive new refrigerators. And also boxes, special boxes for transportation of vaccine. We received 2 batches of Pentaxin vaccine, and the vaccine could be used for vaccination against tetanus, measles, mumps, pertussis, a total of 5 infection diseases for children under 5. ADP vaccine, diphtheria, tetanus vaccine, we do not have it for children of over 5 years old. I called by phone to 3 outpatient clinics in Kiev. They said they do not have vaccine. They said they do not have vaccine against tetanus. What parents should do? I was advised to go to the drugstore and to bring the vaccine dose to the hospital. We do not have AP, TDP, and ATDP vaccines in Kiev. Tetanus, anatoxin, the last dose in Kiev we used in 2016 in June. This vaccine was brought to Ukraine in November 2014 as humanitarian aid. There were 330,000 doses brought in 2014. We hope that DTaP and TDAP vaccines will come to Ukraine soon, and we can use them in future, and they will be with good expiry dates. And I'm sure that in 1 month we will not any longer experience a deficit of vaccines. The same situation, unfortunately, is that we give parents information as of today where vaccines can be bought. A DTP vaccine, there are some doses available at Kharkiv manufacturer, but as far as I know, some manufacturers now are not in operation, they are under repair, and those doses which are produced in Kharkiv, they are not enough for all of Ukraine. Well, thank you very much to the panelists and to the audience and journalists for coming to our press conference, and we hope you will